welcome to our webinar. This is the first one we've done, and it's good to see a good turnout here. So as Chris mentioned, the main focus of this webinar will be for Neil to review the exploration target for everybody. It's been a big week for us, and having to have met that exploration target milestone internally was a pretty big deal. We may be speaking to some forward-looking statements during our presentation. I'm not going to review the entire second page of our presentation, but feel free to go to our website and download the presentation and have a read through. It's been a busy week for companies in the EU-ICHI James Bay region of Quebec, Canada. I'm sure most of you saw Patriot Battery Metals had a news release on Sunday announcing a cesium deposit on their Shakatchewin project. And then we followed closely behind that on Monday with our exploration target. So it's really great to see that we're all working in a truly, well-endowed critical minerals district. And I think as companies move forward with their projects in the area, I think we'll all move forward collectively. So it's very nice to see. To kick things off, I'm just going to do a quick intro of our team, and then we'll move on to Cisco. Oh, there we go. So myself, Alicia Milne, I'm the president CEO of the company. I have a legal background, have been involved in the mining industry, mostly in Canada, for just over 20 years, working with private companies through to New York Stock Exchange listed companies in various stages of exploration, development, and production. Neil, as you can see on the screen here, he's our Vice President of Exploration. He's been active in the James Bay region, looking at lithium projects for probably the past, 9-10 years, Neil, working with DeRouge Geological and now with us. We have some of our board members are present on this call. Jody Belfleur, she's also our CFO. Kevin Bottomley, Leo Power, Simon Cohen, Jason and Chris, as he mentioned. And, recently in the past couple of months, we've been staffing up our team, adding to what we need as key pieces moving forward. So, we have Simon Gaven, who's based out of the Abitibi region. He's joined us to head up our community relations activities. And, we've added a permitting person to the team, and she's actively helping us in the background with some permitting things. So, as we continue to progress with Cisco, we'll continue to add to the team. This is just a brief share structure slide here. What's to note, we have analyst coverage from Canaccord out of Toronto and Australia, as well as Argonaut Securities. Cash on hand right now, we have about $5.7 million cash. Very few payables because we're up to date on everything. We have warrants. We have about 9.7 million warrants that are all currently in the money. So, provided those were exercised, that would bring in an additional $4.9 million, I think it is. Those were from a financing that we did literally at this time last year, and they expire in 2026. And now on to Cisco. As you can see in this picture, this is a good overview shot of what the actual project looks like. Up in the top corner of your screen there, you can see what we've termed the CO1 outcrop. And then down below at the bottom of the screen here is the last drill hole of the 2024 drill season. So that total distance from that main CO1 outcrop down to that last drill there, that would be about 850 meters. And over the winter program, we actually drilled another 650 odd meters to the south of that drill as well. So, the total distance is about 1.5 kilometers from that main CO1 outcrop down to the last drill hole, the most southern drill hole, I should say. The area is predominantly a forested area, and you can see up where that CO1 outcrop is, it's kind of wide open, but to the south of that, it's pretty well forested. Here's where we are in the James Bay region. You can see some of our neighbors there, like I mentioned earlier, Patriot with their Shakatchewin project up to the far north, Winsome and their Adinas just near them as well. Rio Tinto, having acquired Arcadium the past couple months there, they now have the Galaxy project and the Whabouchi project in Nemaska there. And we're at the most southern portion of the James Bay region. So we're just 150 kilometers away from the nearest town of Matagami, which is a historic mining town. It's also the railhead for the Canadian National Railway, which, would eventually connect any product being shipped out of the James Bay region down to essentially Bécancour or the port system. We also have the Billy Diamond Highway that runs through the Cisco project. The original project that we did acquire in February of 2024, so just a year and a half ago, was a smaller portion. We then extended that in November of last year to cover off a lot of the road and for potential essential development scenarios. At this time, we are in the permitting process of putting in an access trail going from one of these little yellow squiggly lines that you see here. Those are the forestry roads straight through to the mineralized zone. The entire Cisco project is over 801 contiguous claims, 41,000 odd hectares, and a greenstone belt runs through it. The project was originally discovered in 2022 when the vendors of the project were flying their helicopter over on their way to another project and decided to have a coffee break and landed on that main CO1 outcrop. And when they got out, they realized what they'd actually landed on. So they did get out there. They did some mapping and sampling. In 2023, after the forest fire season, they went out there and they drilled 6 holes. And it was in the last 3 holes there that really attracted Neil specifically to the project because of one of the highlights here that's mentioned as 48 meters of continuous spodumene mineralized pegmatite interval that graded at 1.36% Li2O. We acquired the project February 2024, did a summer drill program for about 6,300 meters over 17 holes, got back out there in February, and we did a winter drill program. So that was about 6,900 meters over 14 holes. So still very early days, but I think the significance of what we've discovered is about to unfold. And with that, I'll turn it over to Neil.
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. I guess I get to highlight the better part of the project in terms of the results that we've had so far. This is a really busy map with a lot of numbers on it, but I think it's highlighting the true potential here in terms of continuous widths of spodumene pegmatite and the grade being quite impressive as well. From north to south is our zone that we've defined by drilling. And like Alicia said, that's about 1.5 kilometers long. The northern end is highlighted by hole 10 with 120 meters and 1.72% lithium oxide. And at the time, we thought that that was pretty darn impressive until we got to hole 18 with 215 meters at 1.69% lithium oxide. And then with putting a hole in between those two, hole 21 had 347 meters at 1.35% lithium oxide. And I won't go off on all the results, but that sort of a trend continues for that 1.5 long, and at the south end it's continuing to be strong as well, with one of our better holes in the project, hole 27, with 179.6 meters at 1.66%, followed by 2 impressive intervals below that. So what we've defined so far is obviously been good. It's industry leading in terms of the drill intervals, but we've had a difficult time projecting that story because we don't have any tonnages yet, which is what led us toward getting our exploration target out to market so that people can kind of have an understanding on where we sit. So the next slide, Alicia, gives you an idea what that looks like in 3D. You can kind of see how these line up from the north to the south. That 850 meters that Alicia spoke to before is where we started and where we've got most of the drilling finished. And our extension during the winter program extended that another 650 meters towards the south, or the right-hand side of that cross section. That includes pretty well everything up to the end of winter just a few months ago. So that's a real nice summary to show kind of in that 3D perspective. And cutting another slice through the project at the northern end, right about where we've got the most amount of drilling, with hole 36 being our most recent one that we've published results for, drilling in the opposite direction to most of the drilling that's occurred so far to understand the deposit a little bit better, more or less confirming that it's not just us drilling down dip with hole 18 on there right in the middle of it with the 215-meter interval. We've got hole 36 drilling in the opposite direction, confirming that that zone is quite wide and quite impressive, which really was a important hole to confirm the extent of the mineralization so that we could develop that exploration target. So that'll be on the next page of what we've defined so far. It is pretty impressive 215 to 329 million tons with a grade range from 1.0 to 1.38 lithium oxide. And that definitely serves us as having the potential. Now I know we need to do the actual mineral resource estimate at least the inferred level to truly compare it to others, but this is definitely getting us on the map as what we've suggested being a globally significant deposit. I think this really confirms that for us. So we're quite happy to publish that. Important to note also that it's an independent group that put that together and gave us the results. That's BBA Consultants. They've done work on several other projects in the James Bay District, so they know kind of what to expect and what the potential could be. So it's been great to work with them. One other point to make for the exploration target is that it's constrained to the red area on the map on the right-hand side there in that dashed area. So why I bring that up is that it kind of highlights that it is impressive, but it's also somewhat conservative of an estimate. It doesn't include any of our CO2 outcrop, which is in the northeast corner of that map. And it's quite an impressive outcrop. It's roughly 30 by 80 meters on surface, and it's well mineralized, but we didn't have the consultants put any potential resources into that estimate in that zone or any of the zones kind of in that eastern side, just because we haven't yet been able to confirm that with drilling. So because we haven't confirmed it with drilling, they didn't want to systematically include that into their resource. And I'll be showing our 3D model that gives you kind of an idea of what we've done and how they've generated that target based on taking the known zones that we've intercepted with drilling and then projecting that out roughly 250 meters along the inferred strike direction for each individual pegmatite.
And I think what's also to note, Neil, not to cut you off here, but this is just based off of 40 holes that we've drilled to date, 16,167 meters. So that's what is included in this exploration target.
Exactly. It's really just a start for us to get us on the map. This is the same kind of a section that we previously showed with a real simplified view of the drilling and what is included in the exploration target. So you can really see that core zone right over the label that says Cisco Mineralized Zone Exploration Target is the core zone of what we're looking for, and that wide mineralized zone is what extends from the north to the south. And then beside that main body, let's call it, toward the east and toward the west, you have these more isolated zones that are dipping toward the southeast that aren't, as we can tell, yet connected to that main body, but they'll add tonnages, and that's going to be less of a priority for us because obviously it makes sense that we would be going after and defining that main mineralized zone in the center.
Neil, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so you can bring up your model.
Right. All right, hopefully that shows up well. So this is how it looks when we're looking from south to north, with all of our drill holes so far, and then what they've defined. So when I rotate that down, you can kind of get a look on how that was projected. So any of this red blob or slices that you can see are included in the exploration target. And then any of these holes toward the northeast where this is our CO2 outcrop aren't included in that resource. So you can really see the geometry at the early stages of what has been estimated. It really holds well together in terms of the main body, which I'll highlight just a little bit more. This is the main portion of the estimate. This amount here contributes to about 80 to 90% of the estimate. And then these smaller zones towards the east contribute a pretty minor amount. And when we take a look at the cross section, you can kind of see that main zone contributing the bulk of it. Making it slightly more transparent, you can really see how that looks on section. And again, as you go in either direction, it will hold together pretty nicely. As that main structure. So yeah, we're happy with the results, and I think it's what we stated so far is that it is a fairly conservative estimate. Sometimes these exploration targets are meant to be whatever could conceivably be defined with an unlimited budget. That's how they were originally defined, but right now we've got more of a conservative approach where they're taking what we have defined and projecting that out a little bit. So I'd say it's a great estimate, great start, but again, fairly conservative. So we're happy with that as a start. And then the next steps are to get toward the inferred resource. So this is a really good start, and with already starting at 200-meter spacing, we'll be going down to likely around 125 is the next step for us. So filling in the gaps between most of these holes, as they have already been drilled at a pretty tight spacing with 200. And in this area toward the north, there's already less than 200. So we've got a good start. Yeah, I'll flip it back to you, Alicia.
Okay. That brings us to our metallurgy page. And there's actually a question in the Q&A right now, which is perfect timing, and it wants to know about the spodumene crystal size and iron content. So I'll turn it over to you, Neil.
Yeah, okay, great. So what we've done so far that we've released is on the mineralogical side, which is always where you want to start, get a good mineralogical understanding of your deposit. And with that, we have defined that spodumene is the primary lithium-bearing mineral for all the samples that we've submitted. There's no petalite, lepidolite, or amblygonite, or anything else that could potentially complicate any sort of a processing for that. So we're happy that the spodumene is pretty well all we have for lithium bearing. And the crystal size is typically an inch or two crystal size, some larger, some smaller. And that's going to be perfectly sizable enough for what we're aiming for, which is the dense media separation is a lower cost processing technique that we're going to aim for. I think it's important to note that obviously we don't have any shortage of tons to be working with potentially, so we can compromise a little bit on the recovery, which the dense media separation often does compared to flotation. So I think we can aim to not include flotation, but currently we have 3 sizable subsamples of the project that are being processed by SGS on what's called the heavy liquid separation, which will demonstrate whether or not the DMS circuit would work or not. So we're optimizing some of those results, and we'll get those out in a press release as soon as those are available. So summer plans for 2025, we're going to keep on with our program of mapping and sampling a good spread of the project as it stands to date, covering with a focus on the greenstone belt that Alicia mentioned, that covers pretty well the entirety of the north end of the project. I think that's about 20 to 25 kilometers long. So even though we've defined a pretty sizable resource target, exploration target in the center, there's still huge potential on either side to get that potentially some new discoveries. We've done the exploration target, and we're leading towards the infill drilling of what we've defined so far. And obviously, there's definitely room to expand the strike length, test other zones, but right now our focus will be infill drilling. We're going to continue with the metallurgy for a few different geophysics techniques that we'll work on going forward. And then we'll be reporting assays later this summer, and then just continuing to advance the project.
And this is just why lithium and why Quebec. Why Quebec? Quebec's a great jurisdiction to work in. It's the government's very supportive, and we have the Canada flow-through tax system here, where if we were to issue shares, we could issue them on a flow-through basis. Quebec does have a little bit more of an incentive if we were to raise flow-through shares there. And they've just been supportive. We're in the Cree Nation, and they're also very, very supportive of us. So, we have no issues in Quebec. Why lithium? There is a demand for lithium. Sorry, as the world continues to electrify, I think there's going to be more and more demand. Right now, there's a bit of a disconnect between the supply and demand side, but once that straightens out, I think we'll see an uptick in the lithium price. And that's the end of our presentation. So opening up to the Q&A. Neil, I don't know if you can see that, but there is one from Stuart here. From your model, do you think that drill hole 21 with the 347 meters at 1.35% is the widest part of the system? Or are future drill holes in the area likely to lead to longer continuous intercepts?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love it. Right now, it looks like that is probably the widest part of the can't say the word deposit, but let's say resource or zone. We are continually improving the total pegmatite in one drill hole with recent results. So it is a continuous interval of 347 meters. So like hole 27, I think, ended up being quite impressive as well, quite a bit further to the south. So yeah, it's quite possible that that's the best, but I don't know that it needs to be any better than 347 meters.
Okay,
All
so
right.
there's a few more questions. I'll just kind of rapid fire them at you, starting with BBA, who did the exploration target. You mentioned that they did others in James Bay. Who else did they do?
I believe they have worked on Patriot's Shakchunan project, and I think that they worked for Winsome, but I'm not totally sure.
Okay, and more technical, what drill spacing would you anticipate for inferred, and how many meters to get there? And then there's another additional one asking about if you'd go to M&I and indicated, so probably similar questions on that.
Yeah, sure. So we're looking at roughly 125 meters is what we're going to aim for inferred. I think that's pretty reasonable given that the main zone holds together pretty well. So I think additionally, we'd probably be looking at about 15,000 meters of additional drilling to get to that inferred. And then measured and indicated is going to need to be likely half of the 125 again to get to that level of confidence. So an additional probably 25,000 meters. And that's kind of it's contingent on a few things. It's contingent on what we actually want to bring into that category. Obviously, the focus will be in the core zone and whatever's closest to surface and would be feeding toward a PEA, where you want to focus on whatever is highest grade, closest to surface, whatever is going to be providing the best economics for any sort of a mining scenario. So we may not need to bring in all of the inferred resource to measured and inferred. So that's a bit of a balancing act that we're going to be playing as we advance the project.
So there's a handful just talking about sort of the obvious. So the cash position, I think, was 5.7, and to get to that inferred, it's going to be needing some additional capital. Just discuss plans there, or options, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have lots of options when it comes to financing. As I mentioned, being Quebec, there's the flow-through system that we could issue flow-through shares at a premium to market. We're constantly looking at the market. We're constantly, making sure we're moving Cisco forward, albeit it might not be as fast as some people would like us to. But it's also a virtue of what the lithium market is doing right now, with the overall, TSX Venture Exchange market's doing right now. So, we do watch it constantly. It is constantly on our minds. And, if and when a window opens that we could potentially raise some funds, we'll definitely take them. It would be nice to get Neil a nice large flow through budget so that he could just, hit Cisco super hard.
A lot of drilling.
That's actually a great jumping off point for the next question. But it is it's funny, and it's worth remembering that the project was acquired just over a year ago. So the progress has been pretty rapid as far as my prior experiences have gone. So on that note, in the event that you had the capital, what would be the breakdown of your focus in terms of infill versus would you look still at other blue sky across Cisco? And then related to that is, do you think there's other minerals present on the project, cesium or tantalum or even gold?
Okay, that's a great question. There's a lot to unpack there. I think I'll start with the potential for cesium or other elements. We don't currently have any, significant cesium zones. A few sniffs here and there, but I think what's important to note is that oftentimes these cesium zones are quite small. So I'm going to keep my eyes open for the cesium, just to see if there's going to be a zone that pops up on the project, and then we'll take a look at it after that. With the 200-meter spacing, I think that there's definitely there could be some smaller cesium zones. Or, like I said, they're often quite small. In terms of tantalum, there is some on there. It's on the lower grade compared to other tantalum and lithium projects. So it's all going to be a matter of whether that's economic. With tantalum being a fairly volatile and small market, it's better to probably hinge your project on lithium if that's primarily what you have. There's obviously potential on the project as a whole for gold or copper, base metals, and that sort of thing that we're keeping our eyes open for as we explore with boots on the ground for the rest of the project. There's been historical gold exploration on the project, so that's kind of exciting. But obviously, our focus will be lithium.
So there's about
another part of the project, or to the question too, but I've now forgotten.
And I already clicked that it was answered, so it's gone.
Great.
So if that was your question, reach out directly again, and we'll answer it offline. And on the back to the exploration target, mentioned it being conservative and whatnot, and it's a pretty wide range. So where does that put Cisco among, say, North American projects and global spodumene projects?
Alicia, I think you've taken a look at that more than I have.
Yeah, there's a nice bubble chart that Chris, I know you like to refer to, that was in the Canaccord report, and recently PLS had it in their presentation, and it lists the top lithium deposits worldwide. So, based on this mineral exploration target that we've done on that main mineralized zone, I believe it puts us in the top 10, potentially even closer to that, potentially the top 5. It would be number 1 in the Americas, I believe. But, this is all based on that exploration target. So we do have work to do ahead of us, but it's looking promising.
Yeah, and that probably some of those peer comp charts will get built and find their way into our presentation here in the next couple of weeks if I have my way as well. 2.5 more questions. One is, can you talk about logistics and infrastructure costs to market? You can see this probably yourself in the Q&A as well, whether to China, Bécancour, Corpus Christi, and comp with other projects.
For sure. I mean, that's, in my mind, that's an easy one. And that's, if you had told me a year and a half ago when we first got Cisco that was going to play so much into the scenario, I would have said, you're crazy. I mean, look at Patriot's project. But, we're just 150 kilometers north of the rail. There are plans by the Quebec government, and they did some consultations in 2023, I believe it was, to actually push the railway up to the north more. And that would essentially run straight through Cisco along the highway there. So, I think where we are in the area, being in the very most southern portion of James Bay, is a huge beneficial factor for us. That cuts down on your transportation costs. And yeah, where it would go after that, put it on the train and send it to, the port system or to Bécancour for additional processing. I don't think it gets better than where we are location-wise.
This one's for Neil. So following initial network, anticipate conducting pilot process testing.
Yeah, I think that will be something we look at likely after we do the PEA, getting towards a feasibility study. That'll be something we're going to do eventually. I think the initial test work will demonstrate whether the DMS circuit is feasible or not. Following that, we'll be optimizing just exactly the process of crushing and what, the size that we crush it to, and all these sorts of optimizations before we get to the pilot plant stage. But it's definitely something we're going to be looking at in a few years' time.
That's great. I'm going to read these two together because the answer is buried in one of the questions here. So the question, what has the trend been like for drilling costs in James Bay over the last couple of years? And would we expect our drilling costs to be lower for the next 15,000 meters than it was for the first 15? The second question to that is, what do you anticipate the timeline is for permitting and building the access trail? And would it be initially all season or summer, winter? So those kind of go together.
Yeah, I see what you did there. I think that's an important point, is that we're permitting that all-season access trail to keep costs lower. Right now, we're kind of at that lower end of a heli-borne exploration program, and having that all-season access and a camp that's closer to the mineralized zone is going to keep those drilling costs down. I'd say right now, drilling costs for a drill contractor are fairly competitive. It's busy, but not ridiculously busy like it was 3 years ago. So that's positive. And the only thing to get our drilling costs lower a significant amount is going to be that access road. So that'll be coming. We can augment a larger winter program with a winter access trail that's going to have a quicker turnaround time for permitting. So we're going to be looking to do that as well going forward.
Okay, last 1.5 questions. One quick one is the Quebec government invested?
Yes. The Quebec government has a couple individual investment funds that have come in. So you have your NQ investments, they've come in, and same as Sidex. They've both invested in our private placements over the past 2-3 years. And yeah, they continue to reach out. They're very well aware of Cisco and where we are in the region. And yeah, they're very helpful. They're very proactive when it comes to mining.
Okay, and the last one is just having mentioned the Canaccord research coverage. Question is, how does one get a look at that? As there's 2 ways, I assume. One is you have a Canaccord account and you get it from the research, and 2 is reach out to either Tim Hoff or Katie or the team that are mentioned on the website. Any other thoughts there?
Yep, no, that's pretty much where you go to.
Okay. That's the end from this side. That's the end of the Q&A. So we'll just flip it back to you for any final thoughts.
Yeah, I hope everybody got some good information out of this. Neil and I and the rest of the team are very excited to have this exploration target sort of set a line in the sand and, enable us to be able to get out there and talk to what we're seeing. I mean, you can talk to people about, these large intercepts of spodumene pegmatite all day long, but until you can actually visualize it on that model, for a lot of people, it doesn't really mean a lot, especially if you're not, in the lithium industry itself. So I think having that set, we can move forward. And as I mentioned, we're taking the time right now to put the pieces in place to be able to move forward on a quicker basis. We're getting permitting underway. We're doing initial baseline studies, met work, all things that will need to be done. And we're starting on that now. So we actually even had a scoping study done on where we would get power in the area. So, certain options are available, and it's something that we will continue to explore as we move forward and as we continue to move Cisco forward. It's an exciting project to be involved with, and looking forward to seeing where we can take this. Neil?
Yeah, and I'll add to that. One of the important pieces of the projects in Northern Quebec is getting community involvement, and specifically right down to the land user, which in this region they're referred to as the tallyman, sort of a family system of land use where they do the traditional hunting and trapping on certain portions of land. So we've, with the help of Simon Gavin, our community relations person, we've had really productive conversations with them, and it's a real synergistic approach that we're taking in terms of defining where we're putting potential infrastructure in. So they're well informed and well on board, as well as the community. We're doing probably more than most others do on that aspect. So that's all very positive, and I expect it to continue on that positive note as well going forward.
Okay, that's great. We can wrap it up there. It's exciting times here at Q2, and with it looking like there's a little bit of life coming back into the lithium market generally, and that's providing a bit of a nice tailwind. So we certainly think there's some bargains here in the lithium space, and would invite everybody to reach out directly to us at any time with questions or comments. And thanks everybody for taking the time. There will be a recording of this. We'll clean it up a little bit to take out some of the ums and ahs, and we'll send that out to our list. So if you haven't signed up, go to the website, sign up to get updates, and Jason and I will take care of getting that into your hands. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.